Sometimes the most monstrous evil hides behind the most innocent faces. Sometimes what we call love can turn into the whispers of a killer. This is the story of a spring night in the quiet town of Jasper, Canada. A story that challenges the limits of reason. The story of how a 12-year-old girl transformed the love she had for her family into death. This is the twisted reality of Jasmine Richardson, woven with vampire love, revenge, and lost innocence. Scene of the incident, Jasper, Alberta. Date, April 22nd, 2006, Saturday. The air was cool, a typical Canadian spring evening. It seemed like an ordinary night for the Richardson family. Mark and Deborah Richardson were at home with their 8-year-old son, Jacob. To their neighbors, they painted the perfect family portrait. Mark, a caring father; Deborah, a mother devoted to her home and children; and Jacob, a lively little boy who loved to play. But within that house, behind the walls, a storm was brewing that no one could see. Their 12-year-old daughter, Jasmine, was in a forbidden relationship with a man named Jeremy Steinke, 23 years her senior, whom she had met online. Jeremy was a young man who introduced himself as a 500-year-old vampire, obsessed with Gothic culture and an outcast from society. For Jasmine, he was the symbol of her rebellion and dreams of freedom. Her family, especially her mother Deborah, strongly opposed this relationship and tried to keep her away from this man. This prohibition, in Jasmine's eyes, turned her family into enemies standing in the way of her dreams. Jeremy had convinced Jasmine that they would run away together to vampire heaven. But there was an obstacle in their way, her family, and that night they decided to remove this obstacle. Midnight, the descent of darkness. The hours had passed midnight. In Jasper, the lights had gone out one by one, and the town had fallen into a deep sleep. The Richardsons' house was plunged into darkness. Then, a shadow glided around the house. Jeremy Steinke, 23, as planned, silently broke the back door and slipped inside. Inside was pitch black. Only the regular breathing sounds of the family members could be heard. He first headed to the bedroom. Mark and Deborah Richardson were in the deepest part of their sleep. Perhaps, until that moment, they were unaware that their daughter was being dragged into something much darker than a teenage rebellion. Jeremy raised the knife in his hand. At that moment, the cold and merciless sound of violence dominated that silent room. Mark and Deborah were mercilessly stabbed without having a chance to wake up or perhaps defend their lives. Their beds became witnesses not to innocence, but to unimaginable betrayal. But Jeremy's work was not done. He moved to the small room in the hallway. He gently opened the door. Inside, in his bed, was 8-year-old Jacob, perhaps sleeping with his favorite toy. The little boy may have woken from his sleep from a noise, or perhaps he saw the shadow approaching his bed with fearful eyes. But he had no time to escape or scream. Jeremy ended the life of the family's most innocent member. The house was no longer a family home, but a graveyard. The incident came to light the next day through the screams of a relative who came to check on the family. The police encountered a horrific scene. After the murder, Jasmine and Jeremy had immediately left Jasper and were hiding in a motel about 130 kilometers away. The police located the pair thanks to a tip from Jeremy's friends. When the motel room door was broken down, the scene inside once again revealed the cold-bloodedness of the murder. The pair seemed calm and relaxed, as if on a massacre tour. Jasmine was wearing a t-shirt that said massacre. When caught, a dialogue between them proved how chilling the event was. Police, why did you do it? Jasmine, because my family didn't understand my love. Jasmine Richardson appeared in court as the youngest multiple murder suspect in Canadian history. This case divided the country. Was she a child, or was she a monster? According to Canadian law, a 12-year-old was a child and could not be tried as an adult. However, the severity of the crime shocked everyone. During the court process, Jasmine's psychological state was examined. Experts suggested that she was deeply manipulated by Jeremy Steinke, and that her mind had completely lost the line between gothic fantasies and reality. To her, Jeremy was not a killer, but a knight who would take her to vampire heaven. Her family's death was just a price for this fantasy. Jeremy Steinke, on the other hand, was tried as an adult. His behavior in court showed that he remained cold-blooded and even smiled at times. He continued to identify himself as a vampire. Jeremy Steinke was found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. He will not be eligible for parole for 25 years. Jasmine Richardson was tried as a young offender and found guilty on the same charges. The sentence she received was the heaviest a Canadian youth could receive: 10 years. 4 years of this would be spent in a closed prison, and the remaining 6 years would be spent under supervised probation in the community. After her sentence, she started a life away from the public eye with a new identity and name.